suspicious. So, do you still believe we went to the moon? Do you still believe what they're telling you? Just connect the dots and pretty soon you'll find out what I found out too. But if you question this stuff, you'll be labeled a loon. You'll be called a conspiracy theory buffoon. But I don't care, man. I'm still gonna make this too, cause I know that we didn't go to the moon.
What if you swore in the Bible that you walked on the moon? You're the one who said you walked on the moon when you didn't.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Flat Earth Podcast. I'm Curious Jay. Alongside me, Dave from deep inside the rabbit hole. Another hour plus of Flat Earth audio. Dave, what's happening, my man?
Hey, man, doing well here. Excited for today's show with my favorite author, Edward Hendrie.
Yep, coming up later in the show, Edward Hendrie, the author of The Greatest Lie on Earth, Proof that Our World is Not a Moving Globe. We've talked about this book before on the show, and we're going to talk with Edward later on in this broadcast about that book and other things Flat Earth related. But let's get into some recent stuff. You know, just recently on our Facebook page, the Flat Earth Podcast Facebook page, you dropped one of your videos. I believe it was a NASA video, and you know, we get lots of views, lots of shares, that sort of thing. But this one really took off, right?
Yeah, it was actually my video, The Earth is Not Spinning, Orbiting, or Flying Through Space, whatever the name of it, I forget the name of it off the top of my head. But it went viral. It's got 12,800 shares as of recording of this. It's got 4,200,000 people reached. It's got 1.4 million views right on the site. And the comments are coming in at hundreds per hour, more than that.
Yeah, comments and messages.
Yeah,
like direct messages. So we're sending out. You know, it's great. It's great when something like this happens when it reaches more people. However, the downside of that is we need help. You know, the direct messages that come in, we're trying to field as many of those as possible, especially the more serious questions. Not "Are you guys retarded?" We just scroll past those, but where our listeners can help us out is if you go to the Flat Earth Podcast Facebook page and you find this video and you start looking through the comment threads. What's happened is now that this has reached 1 million people, you know, most of the comments are the people who've never heard of Flat Earth or who are just like, this
and
is
they're
so
not
ridiculous.
asking if we're retarded. They're not asking. They're telling us we're retarded.
Right, of course. So if you've got some spare time on your hands and you want to read through all that thread, drop some polite but informative answers up there on the, or comments.
Yeah,
on
just
there.
a simple link, to say, hey, here's the answer. Here there is no edge, and here's and drop the map in there, whatever. But anyone, try not to drop memes in there, because when I see a meme, I just delete it, just because it just takes up too much space and it makes it hard for people to get through the thread.
Yeah, and as far as those comments go, I mean, when I say it's impossible, it is literally impossible to keep up, because as many comments as you see on there, when you go look at this video in the comment thread, there's that many more direct messages that are flying in.
Yeah, so another thing is people get mad. They'll ask a question, and then 10 minutes later, they'll be like, oh, no answer, running scared. When I see something like that, even when I finally see it, I'm not going to even answer it. There's a 10% chance that we're going to see your comments,
right?
And there's a lower % chance that we're even going to be able to respond to it. I spend, when I have a little time, I spend time banging out some comments and some answers, best I can.
Yeah. I was jumping on there a couple times the last couple of nights not on the comments, but on the direct messages, and I was going through, and I was, like I say, trying to sift through them to see if there was any that were worth responding to. And there were several, and so I would drop in some comments or check this out, go look at this, because we do appreciate when someone says, who's not a flat earther, but says, well, how would you explain such and such, right? And one of the things you like to do is you'll drop in, I noticed in some of the responses, you would drop in a link to that site that you like, Stop Look Think.
Yeah, Stop Look Think. Yeah, they got a ton of flat Earth stuff up there and all of the other deceptions that are going on. But the owner of that in Germany is redoing it. It's going to be an amazing, more improved site. If that's
he's working on the interface, right?
Yeah, he's changing it to be more of a daily blog, maybe. where, you'll be able to subscribe to it, get notifications on whatever topics you're interested in. It'll be organized differently. There'll be categories, and inside those categories, there's subcategories for each research field. Things will be entered chronologically according to the published date of the video or article. Each video or article will be a post in itself, so you can have better link sharing. So it'll be easy. Like you'll see something, you'll be able to just click it and send it to somebody that you want to wake up to the deception. It's going to load much faster, because God forbid 5 or 6 seconds is too long in this day and time.
Oh yeah.
And there will also be a comment section open on all posts, so feel free to do battle in there and hone your flat slaying skills.
Right. Yeah, before we get Edward on, I know we touched a few of them in the last episode, but another thing I wanted to make sure so that we don't get too far behind on this, we need to knock out some more speak pipes this week.
Yeah, that'll be good.
Yeah, and folks, if you've
also on the Facebook page, when people just write, retard or an insult, I don't finish reading it. I just ban them. I don't even just delete it. I ban them because we don't have time for the nonsense like that. So if you accidentally got banned, it's possible that I have a quick finger. Just let us know, and we'll bring you back in.
Yep. First speak pipe. Here we go.
This is just a fan. I think this is probably one of the best podcasts out of all of them. And I just really like what you guys are doing. You got a upbeat thing going on, lots of information, good attitude. And I love the guests. So I hope you keep up with it and keep the good times coming. All right. Thanks, guys.
All right. Thank you. And we're not just playing complimentary ones. We're playing these. We have not listened to these before airing them.
That one I completely agree with. And
couldn't agree more.
Yeah, couldn't agree more.
Yes. Well, no, we appreciate that. And again, we have not pre-listened to these. So anything goes. Here we go. Next one.
This is a message for Dave Weiss. I've been listening to you since Deep Inside the Rabbit Hole. Just love the fact that you turned to Flat Earth when you did, and it's about the same time I did. Just want to let you know that I am an English teacher in school in Indonesia, high school teacher, and I easily teach Flat Earth to my students through what's called a TOK, Theory of Knowledge class. And this allows me to delve into why we believe the things that we believe. I've turned many students into flat earthers, along with many of my colleagues, especially in the science department, where they're looking into it and not just believing what they have been taught with through their lessons through graduate school. So I just want to let you know that I have the opportunity to share my flat earth beliefs and convince students here in Indonesia.
All right. Well, that was a awesome speak pipe right there. Thank you for thank you for the compliment, and also, man, hats off for getting the word out over there in Indonesia. That is awesome. And I think one thing I'd like to say is, if you're still listening to the podcast, if you come across anything in doing this, keep us updated. If you get any resistance from above, if you get any support from above, anything like that, we'd love to hear progress on this. I know I would.
Absolutely. And if you can record any of your teachings to the students, I'd love to. I don't know if that's a possibility, but love to see that in a video.
Yeah, or a discussion or a Q&A or anything. That's awesome. Yeah. Good stuff. Glad people are out there spreading the word any way they can.
That's amazing, actually.
I know it is. It's incredible. It really is. In an actual school, teaching kids how to think. Man, that's great. All right. So let's check out this one from A. Kennedy.
Hey guys, it's Andrew from Alberta. It's my second speak pipe to you. I'm just watching something that looks fairly new. It's from 2017. It's on Amazon Prime. And it's the first live 4K from space from the ISS. I know there's been a lot of discussion about the ISS and some speculation behind that, but they're doing some fun like zero gravity things, and they're going to show some live feed from where they are up there, but it's all in 4K. Just wondering if you guys have seen that before. Of course, producer and director of the show is NASA. That's what it says in the description. But just wondering what your thoughts are on that. Thanks.
So now we get to see their buffoonery in high def. Awesome.
Just because you make the just because you increase the resolution doesn't make it you increase the legitimacy of it.
I will take a look at it, and I think I heard some people talking about it already. I may even have seen some of it, and it's just laughable.
Yeah. All right, here we go. There's another one. We got a few more to knock out, and then we'll get Edward on the line.
Yeah, you know what? You're all a bunch of f***s. That's all I got to say to you guys. Posting bullshit on Facebook, and you block me from your page from questioning your views, so you guys can all go f*** yourselves. I've never seen such a group of f***its in my life. How about you try, I don't know, letting other people with actual opinions talk to you guys instead of just saying, oh, the earth is flat, the earth is flat. Yeah, because none of your proof makes any sense, especially the one about flying through space at so many thousand miles or millions of miles per hour. You forgot to add, the whole mass theory and gravity theory. I can't even begin to say how stupid you guys are. Either you guys are the biggest trolls of all time and you guys are getting me right now, or you're just so stupid that it's so hilarious.
All right, thank you for that speak pipe.
Yeah, thank you.
Proof that we don't pre-listen to these.
Thank you for that. That was wonderful and
charming message.
Yeah,
from T. Martin.
It's probably because his Facebook message was similar to his speak pipe, and I don't even read them, and they get blocked.
Yeah. Wow. Awesome. You kiss your mother with that mouth? All right, here we go. Let's see if we can get an actual one here.
My friend and I were just having a conversation, and we were speaking about flat lens technology. And we were wondering if you had a look into this and examined it in relation to flat Earth theory. Thank you.
I actually responded to that one, Jay, with my first voice response through SpeakPipe, saying I'm not sure what he's referring to and could he send me more information. So if you're hearing this, do share.
And what was it called? The flat what? Flat space? What?
I forget.
I forget. Okay, yeah. Send us some information on it. We'd love to look into that, and if there are any other flat Earth connections. All right, so that'll knock out a good bit of our speak pipes. I have to look and see if there were any older ones, and if there were, but that knocks out the ones over the last couple of weeks. And,
all right.
And if there's any older ones we missed, we'll catch up on them next week. And in just a second, we're going to have Edward on the line. Go ahead, Dave.
Awesome. Let's get Edward on the line.
All right. We'll be back in just a second.
Following announcement has been paid for by
The Flat Earth Podcast.
You want to leave a digital voicemail for us? Head over to theflatearthpodcast.com and click on the blue link that reads, "Got a question? Send us a message."
You can do it from your iPhone or from your computer. First time you do it on your cellular phone, you'll have to download a little app. But after that, you can leave us all kinds of messages. If you want to be anonymous, you can make up a name, make up an email address. We don't care. We just want to hear what you have to say.
We'll do our best to play or answer these questions and comments on future episodes right here on the Flat Earth Podcast. Download the SpeakPipe app and check us out at theflatearthpodcast.com.
The Flat Earth Podcast.
If you're watching this audio on YouTube right now and you're not familiar with the world of podcasting, there's a far better way to listen to the Flat Earth Podcast each and every week.
Think of it like your TiVo or your DVR is to your television. You subscribe to whatever show that you like. Whenever a new episode comes out, it records it, downloads it, and notifies you that there's a new episode for easy listening anywhere. Another great feature on most podcast players is you could speed up if you want to hear stuff even faster, or more importantly, it has a jump back and jump forward 30 seconds so you could skip annoying announcements like this.
We're on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and so many more. If we're not on your favorite podcast app, send us a message and let us know to make sure we will be.
The Flat Earth Podcast.
All right, back with us here on the Flat Earth Podcast. Dave, we've got a very special guest with us on the line today. The author of a book that we've talked about on the show before, The Greatest Lie on Earth, Proof That Our World is Not a Moving Globe. Edward Hendrie is here with us. Edward, can you hear us?
I can.
Great. So, we've got a lot of questions. I don't know if you've listened to the Flat Earth Podcast before, but we cover just about everything Flat Earth related. And one of the questions that we ask people who when we have guest show is just to get it out there and get it done with in the beginning is, how the heck did you become a flat earther?
Well, it's actually, I've been a geocentrist. Let's start there for a while.
How long have you been a geocentrist?
Oh, my. That would have to go back about 10 years.
So wait, before we jump into this, so you were a geocentrist, so you believed that the Earth was spinning, but everything went around us.
Whether I thought the Earth was spinning, not necessarily. I thought that the Earth was. I thought the Earth was a sphere, and that the universe, the sun, and all the planets. I viewed it as basically Tycho Brahe's model. If you're familiar with that. Okay, I don't know if you're familiar.
No, I'm
Tycho
not.
Brahe had a model of the solar system, for lack of a better term. Actually, it's a geosystem. Okay, where the Earth was at the center, and that the sun. Okay, and the sun revolved around the Earth, and then the planets revolved around the sun. And I concluded that the Earth had to be the center of the universe, primarily from reading the Bible. Okay, so I had already, just from doing that research, and there was a book called Geocentricity by Gerald Bow, which was a pretty good book, and there are a number of geocentric scientists. So I had already been convinced from a scientific and biblical view that the Earth was in fact the center of God's creation. A couple years ago.
All right.
Yeah.
So what made you jump to flat Earth?
Well,
I guess is the question.
Came across, there was on YouTube, there was a video called The Flat Earth Conspiracy. And when I looked at it, I thought, oh, okay, so I'm thinking in my mind, this is a conspiracy to discredit those who view the conspiratorial view of history to make us look silly by labeling us as flat earthers. That's what I viewed it as. So I thought, this would be interesting. So I started watching it, and
this is the Eric Dubé book, right?
Yes, he put it together, but it's really an amalgam of a lot of different people. It wasn't just Eric Dubé. Actually, what really got me was what Rory Cooper had to say in that. Rory Cooper, who had a YouTube channel called My Perspective, did an excellent job of explaining the visual perspective and the reality of a flat Earth. And I found his arguments quite convincing. Well, I went to, and I discovered he had other videos. I looked at those, and then I started doing research. And I started doing my own calculations. And it just drew me in. I was blown away with the fact that the evidence does demonstrate that we, in fact, have a flat Earth. I started trying to explain this to my father, who's now 90 years old, and he thought it was nutty. So, and I kind of figured that. So, but he would have good questions. So he asked me a lot of good questions. So, in an attempt to explain the principle to him, for instance, the 8 inches times the miles squared formula, he said, well, that formula's, that's wrong. Okay,
it has to be wrong.
It has
right.
to be wrong. So I pulled out the Pythagorean theorem, and I did the calculation and compared the two figures with the. I compared my results with the Pythagorean theorem, and I showed him how in fact that figure is accurate, and that is in fact the formula for the expected drop on a spherical Earth. Well, that's what got me to even start writing about this. Was I was writing to convince him. I never intended to write a book, but then I started documenting other things and then emailing that to him. And the next thing you know, I started documenting all kinds of things. And I was off on this research of the flat Earth, and it just developed into a book from there. It was never my intent initially to write a book. It was simply to document the proofs of a flat Earth.
Yeah, that actually mirrors a little bit of my early experience with this, Edward, where I remember, I guess it was the beginning of 2016, where I had started looking into this in late 15, but then my mom had a surgery done, so she was in the hospital for a few days. So I had to go back to my hometown, visit the parents, and while she was in the hospital, I took that moment of time to kind of, all right, this is the time I need to talk to Dad about this. And my dad was a civil engineer, and he's, super hardcore into math and that sort of thing. He's very intelligent as far as in-the-box mathematical science goes. And I brought the curvature formula to his attention, and an exact example where you could see the Superdome across 26 miles of Lake Pontchartrain, and showed him the footage. And I said, "How is this possible?" And he said the same thing. Well, the formula must be wrong. So we did, while my mom's in the hospital, we spent the next day or so, and we used the Pythagorean theorem the long way. And we would use a certain, say, 3 miles of distance, 4 miles of distance. And we started doing it. And the answer in the long version came out exactly to the table of the 8 inches per mile square table. And yeah, so that was, I didn't go as far as you did and keep emailing him, but I can definitely see what you mean as far as putting a book together accidentally.
Yeah, and then, speaking of one of the things was Joshua Nowicki's photograph. I mean, that was the initial thing. And I asked...
it's a mirage.
Yeah. Well, Rob Skiba killed that idea because he actually was able to see... He started at Buffalo Harbor, New Buffalo Harbor, which was not where Joshua Nowicki took his photograph. His photograph was taken actually 57 miles across from Grandmere Park. I believe Rob Skiba, his was New Buffalo Harbor, which is about 42 miles across from that point. But the concept is the same. As he started across, he could see the skyline, and the skyline stayed in view the entire time. It was not a mirage until he got, I think, about 8 miles offshore, and then they turned around and went back. But it was not a mirage.
Of course, it's not. It was a great proof, and I really haven't heard anybody deny it. I thought about having you on because I've been getting a lot of messages. Hey, where is a place? Where can somebody show me all these proofs and have them documented? And I recently just bought another copy of your book, by the way. I might be your biggest orderer of your book for my nephew. And I noticed it was considerably thicker. And I was like, am I just remembering this book different? Are they using different paper? So tell us what happened. Why is the book almost twice as thick?
Yeah, well, the book was written, it was first published, oh, goodness, it would have been 2016, and now we're almost 2018, and what has happened is there's been a lot of information that has come to light, really excellent information. For example, you yourself had presented a video, which I thought was superb. And that was the video that explained how who was it? I can't remember the guy's name who created the supposed 24-hour sun in Antarctica. And he presented a video. And you debunked that video by showing it's basically a loop. And it's a fraud. There can be no 24-hour sun in Antarctica. Okay? And that video that was presented in that movie was a fraud. And you did an excellent job of showing that. So I thought that I have to include that, and so I did. So that's one of the things.
So did you? I haven't actually seen that yet. Did you include pictures from the video in there?
Yeah,
or?
the comparison. And so I've got that in the most recent edition of the book. Yes.
Excellent. So my idea is, being a flat earther, you think about it all the time. And when you're with your baller friends, your heliocentric friends, you're always thinking of ways, what can I say, without, you don't want to be that religious fanatic. Not that this is a religious thing, but, where you're always pushing something. And I thought that your book is a great gift. And going into the holiday season, I think people can solve their shopping needs by getting this for everybody. your friends, your family. It's a good gift. My nephew was really happy to get it, and we'll see what happens with him.
Yeah, no, I think it is because see, here's the thing. People have all kinds of questions in their mind about the flat Earth when presented with it, and if you don't have the evidence, then it can be easily dismissed because you're dealing with years and years of conditioning. People have been brainwashed into believing that we live on a globe from the outset of their schooling.
Once you really look into the flat Earth, looking back at the globe, it's as laughable as globers think flat Earth is when they haven't looked into it. But the fact that we've looked into it, and then you look back at the nonsense in the globe, it's amazing. Just finishing my point about a place with references. How many pages of your book are references?
Oh, well, I can tell you that it's over 900 endnotes. So how many pages that takes up?
So my point is there's a lot. You've backed up everything in the book with references. So it's not just a book saying things. It has references and it tells you where to go. And it's a book that you can read a whole bunch of times.
That's right. I mean, what a person has to say only has validity based on the authority of what they have to say. And so I put the basis for any statement made in this book so people can check the source to find out if, in fact, it is true. So people should not just believe somebody because they say it. They should look at the basis for what is said. And that's the problem now in schools. The teachers simply say things, and nobody seems to question, well, what's your authority for that? See? And people have to have authority for what they say. And so everything in my book is backed up by authority. There's nothing where somebody's left to wonder, well, where did he get that? See? So, and a lot of the authority comes directly from science, what we call science. And basically, if you look at science, true science, it absolutely refutes the idea of a spinning spherical Earth. In fact, if all we had was a blank slate and the argument was, okay, do we live on a flat Earth, which is what we experience every day, or do we live on a spinning globe that's spinning at 1,000 miles per hour at the equator? The idea of a spinning globe is laughable. It just cannot hold up to scrutiny, scientific scrutiny, observational scrutiny. It simply cannot hold up. In fact, every scientific experiment that has ever been done has proven that the Earth is stationary and does not move. Every single scientific experiment throughout history has proven that the Earth does not move, which puts the nail in the coffin of this idea of a spinning Earth.
I wanted to ask you something about references. Was there at any point in doing the book, I've read through your reference table in the back several times, but I can't remember. Edward, was there any references that you came across that you were surprised to come across? In other words, I know you got lots from online videos. You got lots from about the NASA, the moon stuff, the Bible. But was there anywhere that you stumbled upon making a book where you're like, whoa, look at this?
Well, actually, there is, people say, well, where does it say that that the earth is flat in the Bible, for instance? And if you look at the Bible, it does make it pretty clear, and I have a chapter on that where I explain that concept. But take, for instance, Joshua chapter 10. Now, in Joshua chapter 10, the Israelites were fighting in a battle, and it was necessary for them to have more daylight in order to secure the victory. So God stopped the sun and the moon in their ordinary travel over the earth. And what's interesting about that passage is it states that the sun stood still upon Gibeon, and the moon stood still in the valley of Ajalon. So it tells you in the passage where the sun was, where the moon was, and when they stopped. Well, if the sun is, 93 million miles away, how could it be at a particular point? It's 93 million miles away and 100 times bigger than the Earth. How could it be over a particular area in the Earth when it's so far away? The passage makes no sense from a heliocentric view. See? And so those types of things are like little nuggets that just jump out that you wouldn't notice when reading the Bible from a heliocentric view. And a lot of times people read the Bible and not understand what the Bible's saying because they've been conditioned by the school system and by everything that they've learned that the earth is a spinning sphere and the sun is a far off sun, 93 million miles away and massive. Okay, and so some of these passages have no real meaning to them. But when you read them for what they say, it's clear what's happening.
Let me ask you a question, because there's a lot of people that do not believe in the Bible and think that flat earth is a religious thing. And I used to, I will say that I grew up as a atheist, is the best way to describe me. And I didn't believe anything. And I wouldn't say I'm religious now, but I know that there's a creator. If we could completely remove any information you have about the Bible completely out of the equation, and removed religion from you, if you can do that, would you still be convinced that the earth was flat?
Well, yeah, the evidence is clear. But you have to understand what the Bible says explains why the powers want us to not understand that, you see, because to remove the true concept of God's creation from people's minds removes God from people's minds. See, that's what they want. If a person does not believe in God, he's easily controlled. See, and the governments of this world are in a conspiracy against God and man. And the way to control people is to control their minds. And the way to control their minds is to drive any idea of God from their minds. See, if people understood that we live in a flat earth and that, in fact, the planets are close by, the stars are close by, that the sun is close by, that there is a firmament, and that above the firmament, as the Bible states, God is there, well, they would change their conduct. They would change their behavior. And governments could not get away with doing some of the things they do because the people would not stand for it. They wouldn't go along with the program. Example, take socialism, for instance. Socialism is basically thievery, where you steal from one group to give to another. Now, simply because the government does it doesn't make the stealing right.
Right.
It is still wrong. It's a violation of God's principles. Well, if you remove from people's minds an idea that stealing is wrong, therefore, and because the only way that they would know that is by reading the Bible and understanding that people have a right to property. You take their property from them by force, and that's what government is. Government very simply is force. Okay, they will resist that. Well, if you remove from them the authority of the Bible, you remove from them this concept of thou shalt not steal, then governments can steal. They can steal from one group and give it to another, and that's what they do. And they can do that by removing the idea of God. See, that's why communist countries, their very foundational principle is there is no God. They are by nature, their foundational principle is it's atheistic. It has to be. It has to be. They cannot exist otherwise.
Wow. Can I give you my first amen on that one?
Can we get an amen?
Can we get an amen? So many people ask me, there's so many, the first thing, why, when you throw a couple proofs down and they're short circuiting, they're like, well, why? Why, what difference does it make? Why would the government do this? And the answer is there's so many answers, but that basically encompasses it.
I mean, and by the way, this is this conspiracy has been an age-long conspiracy, okay, and it all comes down to control. If you look at throughout the centuries, how kings stayed in power was they were in league with the religious authorities, and the religious authorities kept the people subservient to the king.
The government, right?
Yes, and the Roman Catholic Church is a prime example of that, okay? Sure. And the minute people started actually reading their Bibles and understanding what it said, okay, guess what they did? They rebelled. Okay? And they threw off the shackles. And the idea, the founding of the United States was the fruit of that, you see. And of course, it's taken years for the corruption to now come back in. So we have the same thing going on here in the United States that has been going on in Europe for hundreds of years.
Following announcement has been paid for by
The Flat Earth Podcast.
Looking for a great Christmas gift idea for friends and loved ones, or just a way to spread the truth about the flat Earth? Head over to theflatearthpodcast.com and click on the link that brings you to the book, The Greatest Lie on Earth, Proof That Our World Is Not a Moving Globe by Edward Hendrie.
Right on the webpage, we have an image of the book there. If you click it, that'll take you to Amazon, right to the book buying page, and you could buy it there. Also, any other shopping that you're going to be doing this holiday season, if you use that link, Amazon will be forced to give a few % of their profits over to Jeranism so it can help expose NASA and the truth about the flat Earth.
The Flat Earth Podcast.
If you're a fan of the Flat Earth Podcast and you want to help us out, here's something simple you can do. Just find the page for the Flat Earth Podcast on iTunes and leave us a review. You can leave us a star rating and a short comment summarizing why you enjoy the show, and these reviews will help our iTunes review average. So head over to iTunes and leave us a quick review. Tell us why you love the Flat Earth Podcast.
The Flat Earth Podcast.
I have a opinion-based question for you, Edward. So, one of the things that still sometimes we get so into this, and I have to stop and remind myself, and I'm shocked every time I do, that this topic was barely even in existence really 5 years ago. When you go back and look at things, it's come so far in the last 2 to 4 years. Where do you see this going, Edward? I mean, the cat's out of the bag, right? We've seen the media try to throw cold water on anything that is brought up with flat Earth, whether it's an athlete or whatever. But where do you see it going? Is this going to grow slowly? Is it going to stop? Or what are they going to do? Just your opinion. I'm just curious what you think is going to happen in the next 5 years.
Oh, I think I believe that they cannot keep it. They cannot keep wraps on it. The only thing they can do is spin it and discredit it. And so you have to, first of all, you have to understand the methods of intelligence agencies, okay? First of all, they try to get out front of something, okay? Lenin said, the best way okay, to win is to be the opposition, okay? And so understand this, that they will and they have been monitoring this flat earth issue for a long time, and they've been out in front of it, okay? And so people have to understand that, and they have to be founded in principles. Don't go running off on every little new tangent that comes along. It has to be studied. You have to find out whether, in fact, it's true, who is bringing it out, okay? So, but I will tell you this.
Question. That
they cannot keep a lid on this. Why? Because we have technology now that is available to anybody. Anybody can have this technology to prove that what they've been telling us is not true. And you can see it on, and they, by the way, they can now broadcast it all over the internet once they determine that. So, for instance, it's at the Nikon P9000. Is that what it's called?
P900.
P900.
Yeah.
Okay, that is an amazing lens. Okay. It is inexpensive. I don't know what it costs, okay, but it's less than $1,000. What is it, $800?
$600.
$600.
Yeah, $500,
okay.
$600.
So
$600.
it's within reach of most people, okay? They can buy that camera. They can document, and by the way, they don't even have to buy the camera. A telescope will do the same thing. But they can document it with the camera and show that, in fact, the planets that what NASA and what we've been learned in school books about the planets is not true. They are not terrestrial. If you look at them through the P900, they're not terrestrial. They appear to be some sort of energy in like water, perhaps. But if you've watched the videos of Venus and Mars and some of these other planets, they're not terrestrial. And you can see that the stars are not suns, far-off suns, okay? Also, there is no parallax between the
Right.
stars, okay, which absolutely impeaches the idea that these stars are millions and millions of miles away and hundreds of light years separated from one another, and that the universe is endless. No, it's impossible without parallax. See? Now, what they've done in order to try to explain the fact that there's no parallax is they've tried to expand the universe, and they even created a new term called light years, okay, which people are so accustomed to, but it's the speed of the how far light travels in 1 year, okay, and they start measuring things in light years, which and speed of light is 186,000 miles per second, and the idea is that the stars are so far away that you can't notice the parallax. Well, that's just their argument, okay? That's what they say.
It's nonsense. Yeah. I get that every day. Every day I get that. It's utter nonsense. Edward, I bring up this proof literally daily when people are asking me. You know, the giant sun next to the Earth, you move it 93 million miles away, it becomes the size of a dime held at arm's length. That's 8 light minutes. If you went 8 times as far, there's no way you could see that sun. There's no way. Even if you doubled the distance, you couldn't see it. But 8 times as far is a light hour.
Yes, bingo. See, you've hit the nail on that. You've actually thought about this stuff. See, if people,
oh my God,
yeah, but see, the kids sitting in their classroom, they're spoon-fed, and the minute you question that, they're slapped down. And they are punished because they would get the question wrong, you see. They have to get the good grades. So they're conforming. They're made to conform.
Right. And the ones that become the professors are the ones that regurgitate the nonsense flawlessly. And then they teach it again and again and again.
Yeah, and they just pass on the ignorance. I mean, it's much like in Islamic country. The people that in order to get ahead in an Islamic country, you have to memorize the Quran. Well, all the smart people end up being the religious leaders. See, because they can memorize passages of the Quran. Well, there is no innovation there. There is no innovation. It's just a religious tyranny. See, and so we live in the same type of tyranny where people just memorize things that are not true. And they regurgitate them. I mean, the theory of relativity is another example of just ridiculousness.
Right. We had some people over at the house the other day, and they had their kids over, and it was just a big mess of kids in the house because we had so much company over at the time. But there were 2 kindergarten kids in there and in the room, and both of them are reciting what they call gravity, and they're learning that in their school right now in kindergarten. And I'm thinking to myself, here's a concept that's actually still debated to this day by other sides of science that are opposed to relativity and gravity, not just flat earthers, not just conspiracy nuts, if you want to call us that, but actual scientists have problems with gravity, and yet they're teaching this concept to kindergartners. I mean, you want to talk about they'll get punished for the wrong answer? That's not even old enough. There's no punishment at that stage. That's just pure brainwashing right there.
I noticed the other day I was at a big store, a big bookstore, and they have these amazing books on space and planets and heliocentrism that they're on beautiful paper with beautiful covers, pop-up books. I mean, very, very expensively made thick books. On sale for $6.99. They're selling these things at a loss to make sure people are indoctrinated, to get kids at these young ages and just brainwash them. There's no way that they could even print the cover of that book for $6.99.
Right.
Yeah, and the guy who came up with gravity, if you read his writings, it was a guess.
Yes.
It was a guess, and it's never been proven. The existence of gravity is never. Henry Cavendish allegedly performed an experiment, and he came up with the gravitational constant, which it's a joke.
Yeah, with his lead ball.
It's
right?
it's silly. It's just silliness. And so for the listeners who want to try to understand this, let me just explain that the reason things fall to the earth is because they're denser than air. And if they were not denser than air, then they would float like helium. Very simple concept. They needed gravity. Okay, they had to have a force. Why? Because if the Earth is spinning, there would necessarily be a centrifugal force pulling out on objects, and they had to explain how it is that there is not that force. Okay, or there's something that there would be that force. There's something. What is the centripetal force? The force keeping things on Earth. So there has to be a force acting on that outward pull, and that's how Newton came up with this idea of gravity, okay, which is a myth. It's a myth. We're not spinning, okay, and so therefore we don't need gravity. Gravity is only something needed if the Earth is spinning. And the problem with gravity, if you think about it, gravity is based on the mass of the Earth, and gravity is supposed to be equal all over the Earth because it's simply based on the mass, the attraction of mass. Well, it is also supposed to act as, and its purpose is to be a centripetal force, to act against the centrifugal force.
Right,
that is, it's supposed to be a force pushing where from the spinning, there's a force going outward. Well, guess what? There is less centrifugal force the further north and south you go over the equator, which means that if gravity is a constant, people should weigh less as you go further north and south. But we know that's not true, which absolutely refutes the idea of gravity.
We know that's not true, but Globers will say that it is true. They'll say well, people bring a 10-pound weight to the North Pole and to the equator, and they weigh differently, and that's just somebody saying that.
Well,
haven't seen any proof of it.
Well, there is atmospheric pressure that does have a bearing on weight, but it's the opposite of what they expect. So in actuality, things weigh more as you go north, but it's also slight. It's so slight. It's barely measurable, and it's from atmospheric pressure, really. So it's that argument fails in reverse, and it's actually the proof is reverse of what you'd expect on a spinning Earth.
Right, like the difference that they're finding in these scales, if they do them, to me it pales in comparison to what it should be when you're talking about, like, everyone's seen the image of the wet tennis ball. I mean, that's an example of how much outwardly force would be everything would be flying off. So the strength of gravity to counteract that force would have to be so much more around the middle.
Now, isn't the argument, Jay, though, that it's only one revolution per 24 hours? And the Globers argue that you wouldn't even feel that. But I would think that the oceans would be sloshing all over the place, even at that speed.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think that's definitely a good point. And I accept that point as far as it's one rotation per 24 hours. So, it's 1,000 miles an hour is one way to look at it, but it's really moving actually slow because it's moving once per day. But they use this spin to attribute the Coriolis effect to the spin.
Yeah,
I mean, you can't have it both ways. You know what I mean? It's not going to make all of our ocean spin or storms and whatever spin different directions because of this massive spin of the Earth. And yet, at the same time, it's insignificant. Therefore, you're not going to need as much gravity. Like you can't have it both ways.
Hey, Edward, what are your top favorite proofs before we wrap this up? What are your favorite proofs? So somebody comes to you and say, "Hey, Edward, I see you wrote this book on the Earth being flat. Why do you think the Earth's flat?"
Well, the one would be distant objects that are visible over water. Okay,
we can see too far.
Yeah, and another would be that water is always level. You don't have curved water. It doesn't exist. In fact, our language even reflects that. We talk about
sea level.
Yeah, sea level. Okay. And by the way, the structures on Earth illustrate the fact that the Earth is flat. The Suez Canal, it's 100 miles long. Okay. And if the Earth were a globe, then it should have a round hump, 1,666 feet in the center of it that it goes over. But yet, in fact, it's virtually level the entire distance. There is no hump. Another good proof is this guy, his name is McIntyre, and he went to the Black Mountain Range in North Carolina. And he found 3 mountains that were in line with one another.
Yes.
He put his camera at an elevation of 5,385 feet on one of the mountains called Tennant Mountain. He was overlooking another mountain called Frying Pan Mountain, and he had them. He created a parallax between them, okay, so that he could see a distant mountain that was 34 miles in the distance, Graybeard Mountain, and they were all about the same height, about 5,300 or so miles in height. Feet in height. So they're all about the same height, and yet at the distance that they were at, okay, so Graybeard Mountain was 34 miles from Frying Pan Mountain, and when he looked, by golly, they were about the same height, even though they're separated by 34 miles, and he could see them both. And he took a picture of this to document it. He also did a video which he posted on YouTube. If the Earth were a globe, Graybeard Mountain should have been 770 feet below the height of Frying Pan Mountain, but it wasn't. It wasn't. The curvature was missing. Now, this is a guy, by the way, John McIntyre, I think his name is John, who does not believe the Earth is flat. He just simply couldn't bring himself to believe that. But he saw this proof, he documented it, and he posted a video on YouTube where he documented it. And this is an amazing proof coming from somebody who does not believe the Earth is flat, but he presents evidence that absolutely proves the Earth is flat.
That's a good one of my favorites.
Yeah. Another is airplane flight. Okay, if a pilot is flying over a spherical Earth and he gets up to cruising altitude, we know that he has a gyroscopic instrument that is an attitude leveler, and he flies straight and level. Well, that instrument is gyroscopic. It's rigid in space. It stays level, okay? So he's flying level. He's also looking ahead at the horizon. He's flying level. And in order to fly level, he has to have a flat Earth. Otherwise, if he's flying over a sphere, he would be increasing in altitude as the Earth, the sphere, drops beneath him because he's traveling at cruising speed over 500 miles per hour in a typical commercial jet. And so in 1 hour's time, he'd find himself 1,660 feet. 166,000 feet, excuse me,
right.
Higher than when he started. He'd be almost 32 miles higher up in altitude above the Earth after an hour.
I say it a little different.
Well,
I say he would have to nose down a full mile every 2 minutes.
Yeah,
Just another way to think about it.
Yeah, and that nosing down doesn't happen. Another proof is the fact that we all know, and even geocentrists accept this, that the correlation between the Earth and the Sun is 360 degrees in 24 hours. Whether you accept the Earth as flat or whether you accept that it's a sphere, the idea is that the correlation is 24 hours of the movement of the Sun and it's 360 degrees. So when the Sun begins its circuit, it ends at the same spot in 24 hours, full 360 degrees. Now, those who believe in a heliocentric view, they have the Earth spinning 360 degrees, but still, it's 24 hours, 360 degrees. Well, stop and think about it. If the Earth were spinning and the Sun is in relation to the Earth 360 degrees every 24 hours, yet the Earth is also orbiting the Sun, in 6 months, midnight will have flipped. So now, when the Earth does its 360 degree spin, it's on the other side of the Sun. What would ordinarily be the dark midnight is now noon,
right,
and vice versa.
Now, don't they explain that away with the sidereal day?
Yeah,
The sidereal day is a measurement of the movement of stars. That's what sidereal means. And so that's why I made such a point in explaining that even heliocentrics, they have to accept that the Earth does move, or that the Earth spins 360 degrees in 24 hours. In fact, I cite in my book, take the Annenberg Foundation. Okay, they have a teacher resource center which makes it clear each day the Earth rotates once in its axis, which equals 360 degrees. I cite other authorities.
I agree. Another place to take that is 6 months apart. If you're on the equator looking up at the sky at midnight, you're looking exactly away from the Sun, and you would see opposite sides of the universe, but you see the same stars.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's impossible. That's impossible.
Yeah. Another one. This is another one that Rory Cooper came up with, and he did a video on this.
And by the way, Rory Cooper's channel is back up. It's called My Perspective, and he's popping out new videos every week.
Yes. He emailed me and explained that he was going to, because he took it down for a while. Flat Earth apparently caused some issues. I don't know what exactly they were. He didn't explain it, but he's now back up, which is fantastic. I wish he would put his old videos back up, but he hasn't done that. But other people have preserved them, so they can still be found. But he explained that if you are just a little bit south of the North Pole, okay, and you are in one of those areas that has 24-hour sun, if the Earth were a spinning globe and the Sun was 93 million miles away, as is supposed to be under the heliocentric model, then you would not be able to see time-lapse photographs the way they are portrayed, time-lapse video, because the Sun would actually zigzag and not go in a circular fashion around the viewer. You see. The only way it could go in a circular fashion, 360 degrees around the person who's doing the time-lapse photograph, is on a flat Earth. If the Earth were spinning and you had a distant sun, and this is where he's brilliant, he's an artist, and he knows perspective. He explains how the sun would actually zigzag and not go around the viewer.
Yes. I've seen that video, and where he uses that computer-generated model to show you exactly why and how the zigzag would be formed, and it's really incredible. I love his videos.
Yeah. It's interesting when you look at what the government has done to conceal the flat Earth. I mean, take Google Earth for example. Google Earth is actually a depiction of the flat Earth in the form of a sphere. And how you can see that is if the Earth was actually a sphere, you would be able to spin that sphere, okay, on Google Earth and 360 degrees and end up in the same spot. But when you spin the Google Earth, and I'm talking about I think it's the professional version where you download the software. I think it also works on the one online, but the one I use is the professional one. When you rotate, either spin or rotate, it actually flips. Okay, which means what they're doing is they're taking flat Earth data and they're portraying it as a sphere. They have to portray it to some degree as accurate because when you zoom in, you can actually get to the locations. So it's actually an algorithm where they're transposing flat Earth data and making it appear as a sphere on Google Earth. Yeah. All you have to do now. People have criticized this by saying, "Well, you can't really grab the edge, the full edge, because it's actually it's off the screen." Well, you can actually do it by turning it either clockwise or counterclockwise as you're viewing it. And really interesting. So, for instance, if you had North America facing you, and you now turned it clockwise, right, okay, or counterclockwise, either way, by the time you finish your spin, the Earth will flip to the other side.
Huh.
And the reason it flips is because they can't fit the flat Earth on a sphere and have it be accurate. It doesn't work.
What do you mean it flips? What you're losing me.
Okay.
What do you mean it flips?
What happens is, all right, if you can envision, let's say North America facing you on a globe, and you take your cursor and you grab the very top at 12 o'clock, right above where the North Pole would be, where Canada is, right above Canada. All right. And now let's say you start rotating it clockwise to the right, all the way around, okay? And then you come back up and you end up at 12 o'clock again. No longer will North America be facing you. The Earth will...
I just did it. It just did that. That is bizarre. So what you mean is you're not pulling it left to right. You're basically grabbing the North Pole and then drawing a circle around the circumference of the planet.
That's right. And it will flip.
Okay, I'm now looking at the other side of the globe.
Yeah. And the reason it does that is because the data they have is data from the flat Earth, but they're simply portraying it as a globe. See, because they have to have it accurate to some degree, because when you zoom in, you go to certain places.
Oh my God, that's fantastic, Edward.
Yeah.
I've never heard of this. Okay, Dave, you need to record this and send it to me.
Don't you have Google Earth on your phone?
Yeah, I've got it. It's on the phone too?
It's the Google Earth Pro software. You can have it on your desktop.
Hard to do.
Yeah, I've got the Pro. I've got it on the Pro. Okay. When we get off with Edward, I'm going to try it right away.
And by the way, this program was developed by the CIA. But it actually was funded by, not developed. It was funded by the CIA, and it was.
Well, at least they did a better job. At least they show stars in the Milky Way when you're in outer space looking at the Earth. Unlike the Apollo program.
No, it was a company. The software was originally called Earth Viewer, and it was a company called Keyhole Incorporated, which was actually funded by In-Q-Tel, which is funded by the CIA, and Google purchased Keyhole Incorporated. That's how they ended up with Google Earth.
Gotcha.
And all their data comes from the federal government, the Geospatial Intelligence Agency, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, etc. It's all government information that's being placed on here.
Wow. That is awesome. Okay, so I'm looking at my copy of The Greatest Lie on Earth, Edward, and real quick, in case anyone out there has it like myself, in comparing it, like David mentioned at the very top of the interview, you added some to it. My version is the one that has 30 chapters. But the new version,
The latest version is you go to the front. The latest version is a seventh edition.
I got you. So,
And that's the one that's for sale. Right now on Amazon, Barnes and Noble.
it is.
It's a beautiful book. It's a great Christmas gift, and nobody can read it. Has anyone ever read it and not become a flat earther?
Oh, I don't know.
I mean, I don't know how anybody can intellectually, honestly read it and not realize they don't live on a spinning ball. We have a link for your book directly on theflatearthpodcast.com. It takes you to Amazon to get it. Right now, as the date of this recording, Amazon is out of stock. Hopefully, they'll be restocking soon. But if anybody buys it there, a small commission from Amazon goes to for Flat Earth research. So if you're shopping there, if you use that link and actually do any other shopping by using that link on Amazon, you'll be supporting Flat Earth research, and that would be great. So if you're looking for a way to support people, just use that link to buy the book, buy 10 of them, or buy anything else on Amazon if you enter in through that link.
Highly recommend the book. Edward, anything else before we sign off that you want to make sure that listeners get a hold of?
No, I think we've pretty much covered it.
Good deal.
So, Edward, thanks for coming on, and keep writing away. Love your book. I took it on my last 2 vacations with me, and read it on the beach. And people look at me like, "What are you reading?" I'm like, "Here you go." And then I give it to them, and they're done.
Yeah, I call it my plane book because no matter what bag I carry on with me on the plane, I always, for the last 9 months, I've always had that book with me on my carry-on. And I typically sleep through a flight, but when I don't, I whip out the book and try to start some conversations with it.
Excellent. All right, Edward, thanks for coming on. We'll see you across the plane.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us, Edward.
Flag that flutters with no atmosphere. Don't you think that's a bit queer? Intersecting shadows means another light source. Do I think it's fake? Yeah, of course. The whole thing was filmed on a Hollywood set. Directed by Kubrick is my best bet. The moon's so cool, we'd love to explore it, but we can't get past low Earth orbit. Do your research, people, I think you'll find that NASA admits that a bunch of times. Listen.
Right now, we only can fly in Earth orbit. That's the farthest that we can go. And this new system that we're building is going to allow us to go beyond and hopefully take humans into the solar system to explore. So the moon, Mars, asteroids, there's a lot of destinations that we could go to, and we're building these building block components in order to allow us to do that eventually.
I'd go to the moon in a nanosecond. The problem is we don't have the technology to do that anymore. We used to, but we destroyed that technology, and it's a painful process to build it back again.